It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
For those who have businesses out there, happy tax day. March 15th, 2024, Friday night. How's everybody doing today? I am Don Tony. Welcome to this latest edition of the Sit Down. SmackDown just went off the air, and WWE better be a little careful. We might get a little bit of backfiring on Cody Rhodes in Philadelphia. If The Rock keeps this momentum, I don't care if you're in Memphis, Miami, Pakistan. If The Rock is supposed to full-blown get that WWE Universe completely behind Cody Rhodes, he did not succeed all that well tonight. Man, Rock was on fire. Crowd loved it. Did a Rock concert after 2 weeks ago. He said the WWE Universe was no longer worthy. Throwing a lot of shade to Cody Rhodes, Cody Rhodes' mom, Seth Rollins, and on social media, where there is no standards and practices. You can't get advertisers upset because on Twitter and Instagram, the advertisers have nothing to do with it. So Rock could use F-bombs. And this day and age, if a wrestler uses a dirty word, oh my God, a million people have to, just get completely bonkers over it, in a positive way, obviously. I think people that are younger always craved what it felt like to be part of the WWE Attitude Era, the Attitude Era, just in general. I mean, the Attitude Era was more than just the WWF. ECW was around, which a lot of people feel that ECW kind of forced WWE's hand to get a little bit of attitude. Remember the cologne Attitude? People wondering why I'm snapping my hands. You got attitude. I'll never forget that commercial. Awful, awful, awful. Funny thing is, and I know some of you know this already, I have on my desk somewhere a whole shitload of WCW Nitro cologne. I kid you not. Believe it or not, don't even ask me why. I have tons of Cody Rhodes tattoos just lingering around. My desk is turning a little bizarro. I got Butch signed photos. Not one, but two. We got CM Punk ice cream wrappers. Here we go. Here you go. WCW Nitro Cologne. Goldberg is on the back. Yeah, my desk is turning into a little weird. It's pretty weird. But Rock was on fire tonight. I fucking enjoyed every little bit of it. The fact that Roman Reigns was not there obviously helped. But, this doesn't help Cody Rhodes tonight, even though Cody was there tonight. I don't know what transpires after SmackDown. Maybe it's Cody Rhodes versus Jimmy Uso or Cody versus Solo Sikoa. But, SmackDown tonight I thought was a fun episode. It was good. I think with the exception of Dragon Lee versus Santos Escobar, which was missing something, and the finish was really, really clunky. Just really it felt rushed more than anything else. But, I think it seems like they may be leading towards Rey Mysterio versus Santos at Mania with a special stipulation on the line. Maybe they do hair versus mask. I can't see Santos Escobar with short hair, though. Would they dare do that? Maybe. Tonight, you started to see the seeds planted of a possible Naomi Bianca Belair tag team taking on the Kabuki Warriors at WrestleMania, which I think that would be interesting for one reason. All these average tag teams in the WWE Women's Tag Team division, what do they have to strive for at WrestleMania then? You see Natty and Tegan Knox battling Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae, and then you have Ivy Nile and, Maxine Dupree, and then you got SmackDown and Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, and it goes on and on and on. You feel like these women are going to be doing something at Mania, don't you think? Shayna Baszler, I don't believe will. Is Shayna Baszler working for Bloodsport? WWE's allowing a few people to work a couple other shows, and I think that's smart. It's WrestleMania weekend. If it happens Mania weekend, that's extra advertising. Sometimes you draw bees with honey, not with vinegar. And Mercedes Mone, ha, ha, ha. We'll talk a little bit about Mercedes, her AEW debut. If anybody is a member of our Patreon family or a channel member on YouTube, you heard my feelings on Mercedes Mone Wednesday afternoon before she made her AEW debut. And my mood was very reserved about it. Very reserved. I'm watching social media, not overall, but I'm watching the people that need the hits, the views, the ad revenue, the attention, just gushing in a very weird way. And I saw about 15 minutes before we went live, someone sent in a super chat related to Mercedes. And I'm a little curious, before we get into the sit down, we start getting into your questions. How should I talk about Mercedes tonight for everybody who's live? Should I go with the flow on social media amongst the wrestling podcast and news world? Should I talk cake and ice cream, or should I talk a little bit of reality about Mercedes Mone? No, I'm not going to criticize Mercedes. I'm really not. But I have a completely different perspective about Mercedes Mone and AEW. And in fact, I got a little screenshot of something that I'm going to show you in a little bit. And I think it's like the poster child of one of the biggest problems AEW has right now. And when you see awful ratings for not only Mercedes Moné's AEW debut, but we got Will Ospreay. We got Jay White. We got others that are appearing on the show as well. And it didn't even break 800,000 viewers. Yes, it's semantics. It was like 798. Mercedes Moné's AEW debut, not only did the show overall only draw 798,000 viewers, and please, anybody that dare says to you, fans, they didn't actually announce that she was going to be appearing, and fans, a lot of people didn't know. Anybody that's trying to throw you that stuff, you might as well tell the hospital to pull the plug on you. You're in a vegetated state. Your brain is completely fried. There's no hope for you. Let the doctors just pull the plug. There ain't one fucking person on social media live and AEW fans that did not know that Mercedes Mone wasn't going to debut. It was in Boston, big business, the dollar signs. Give me a fucking break. Nobody said that shit until after 798 came out on the ratings. Anybody that's doing that, this is why AEW has a massive problem. And when you see people that are petrified to criticize that product, petrified to criticize Tony Khan, because they know, we joke, and I'm doing a little rant before we get into questions. We joke, Kev and I, about Dave LaGreca. And, he's goofy and, a little bit over the top and everything. That man, though, is very, very, very fucking smart. Bully Ray, very fucking smart. Mark Henry, Tommy Dreamer, and some others on there, they don't really go that deep into the waters. I'll explain in a moment. But Dave LaGreca especially is very, very smart. He knows that there is a boatload of snowflakes out there that if anybody truly thinks that The Rock swooped in and was going to take away Cody's story because The Rock became available and you flushed down the toilet 2 years worth of storyline, he knows that there is a overwhelming number of suckers out there that will get so butthurt. This was Bryan Danielson's yes movement all over again. We saw that a mile away. And the funny thing is, and I brought this up before, Kevin and I was so spot on. We were so right about it that people said we were wrong. Tell me, what fucking Twilight Zone am I in that we actually get something right more than anybody else? And because we were so on the nose, we were wrong. I don't fucking get, but Dave LaGreca is very smart. Let's do a We Want Cody campaign in New York City. And a whole shitload of people planned on showing up. He had to change the wording of it, though, because there's a lot of protests in New York City about war, Palestine, Israel, other things going on. And 2 blocks away when they're doing a big protest or march for peace, and this idiot is like, oh, we want Cody. He knows it's a storyline. He knows that WWE is just, by taking, listen, I told you, it's like teasing a dog. It's like teasing a dog. Any of you out there that has a dog, fuck cats. Nothing against cats, but fuck cats. You tease a cat, they'll just look at you and be like, what are you doing? You ever try to tease a cat? Go to give a cat a biscuit or a treat, and then you take it away. You think the cat tries to like charge you and tries to grab it from you? And the cat just looks at you like, let me lick my pussy for a little while. Let me clean myself while you finish doing your stupid antics, and then I'll eat my biscuit anyway. But with a dog, you take out a really nice biscuit. We'll call it a Cody cracker. Hey, Spike, you want a Cody cracker? And the little dog comes up to you, and you're about to give him the Cody cracker, and then right when the dog's about to eat it, you pull it away. And the dog's looking at you like, what are you doing? And then you go to give the cracker again, and right when the dog's about to take it, you pull the cracker away. Now the dog's getting pissed off. Give me that goddamn cracker. And that cracker could taste like absolute shit. That cracker could be spoiled. It could be rotten. That's the same thing. It could be stale. It could be a piece of paper. You tease enough. I got to have that cracker. I don't give a shit what it tastes like. Oh, that's great. That's what WWE did to keep the Cody intensity going, and adding Rock, which is going to help Seth Rollins more than anybody else out of this. That's what they did. And Dave LaGreca knows that, but he can't be common sense because people are going to be like, no, you're wrong. And they move on to someone else that speaks over the top just like everybody else. It's the same thing about AEW. Here's the difference, though. Cody Rhodes is surrounded by Roman Reigns, The Rock, Seth Rollins, the WWE Machine Creative. And Mercedes Moné is wrapped around Willow Nightingale and Julie Hart and maybe Britt Baker. If you have a last place team and you sign a massive superstar in Major League Baseball, that player themselves is not going to bring that team to first place. And more times than not, when a team is struggling across the board and the manager doesn't push a certain part of the team's work, then you bring in a player, that one player cannot turn everything around. That player may be able to help build some anticipation and excitement. If any of us Mets fans, if you were around in the 70s, that's a perfect example. Tom Seaver. I know it's an outdated reference, but since I'm from New York, my New Yorkers may understand this. Why did people still go to Shea Stadium in the 70s when they were losing 100 games a year? Because they would have Tom Seaver. Mark the Bird Fidrick. Way before my time, but I used to love the Bird. He was on the Detroit Tigers, and the team sucked. But whenever he pitched, they had 40,000 people in attendance. Did Detroit suddenly go in first place, second place, third place? No. The only reason why the Bird wasn't traded is because he got injured quickly. The only reason why Tom Seaver didn't get traded until 1978 was because they needed some fucking revenue. Mercedes Moné helps AEW more than anything right now with a TV deal with TBS. That is where Mercedes Moné is the most important. She is not on the signing level of a CM Punk. CM Punk fit right into what Tony Khan's love of wrestling is all about. Anybody that is honest with themselves, that knows about Tony Khan's fandomhood going back to his teenage days, knows women's wrestling was never really on that scale. But he obviously has to showcase it because he has fans that are fans of female wrestling. I'm a fan of female wrestling. I fucking love female wrestling. I don't insist that it should be 50-50 unless it's warranted. I don't care if a show is 80% women's wrestling. If they've earned that spot and they have my interest, then yeah, I'll watch it. But Tony Khan's mindset was never about big on women's wrestling. He came up with New Japan. He came up with ECW. And it's not fair with ECW because even at that time, WWE and WCW were not pushing women's wrestling all that much. You know, once Medusa threw the title in the garbage, they went the women's division in the WWF. Look it up. But, Tony Khan, women's wrestling was never a huge priority. You could main event the Dynamite. You could main event the Ring of Honor. You could give this perception, oh, look, the women are being elevated. Thank you, John, for sending me this. For those on video, this is the breakdown of the ratings of Dynamite from Wednesday night. Everybody and their mother that watched the show that had at least a fifth grade education knew that the minute Mercedes Moné said that she's got unfinished business with Willow Nightingale, and oh, you look at that, Willow Nightingale and Riho are main eventing Dynamite. Gee, I think something big is going to happen in Boston. Big business is going to go down. And even with that, the fucking main event drew 627,000 viewers. Will Ospreay versus Kyle, I don't give a shit, Fletcher, or I should change that. Kyle, AEW never gave me a reason to give a shit, Fletcher, drew in the low sevens, and we thought that was piss poor pathetic. They were almost in the 500,000 range. Look at that, the Big Bang lead-in. And believe it or not, the rating was actually 996,000, but they average it off to the million because that's the new cute little thing that WrestleNomics does. You know, once something gets a million, they don't tell you 1,000,005. They don't tell you 979. No, they just average it out to the next 10th in case people haven't figured it out. By the way, look at that dotted blue line. You're telling me that AEW over the last 3 months has averaged 900,000 viewers? Remember when we called that out 6 or 7 weeks ago? They still haven't fixed that. It's people like this that cause a problem because little things that they refuse to correct and refuse to be honest about, this is what the end result is. The problem with AEW and the reason why I stopped watching on a regular basis is because almost everybody that is out there, AEW has gave me no reason why I should care. Why do I give a shit about Takeshita? All right, he's a great talent. And then they do this dopey shit. You know, what has he done? Does it feel like he's being elevated? Does it really feel like some of your favorites are being pushed to the moon? Jay White, they put him with the fucking Acclaim. Well, he turned on Billy Gunn. Look at that. Every time somebody comes in, turning point, game changer, we're going to see, and nothing fucking happens. So, the kickoff, the sit down, and what is the sit down? Very simple for the rest of the show. How long we go, I have no idea. You ask questions, I'll answer it. You have comments, I'll share it. If you super chat it, you get a little VIP and a thank you for me for financially supporting what we do and help us grow. But that is what we do. I want to open up with this because I want to show you all something. I'm going to show you all something. Ronnie, Hello, DT and family. DT, I expect you to answer this, but I'm sending the question anyway to support the show. What did you think of Mercedes' AEW debut? And is she the game changer everyone is saying for AEW? Thanks, friend. Okay. As far as Mercedes' AEW debut, I thought it was excellent. Boston, hometown, right place to do it. Absolutely. Kind of gave me a little bit of CM Punk vibes when they had him debut in AEW in Chicago. Didn't Kevin and I feel that Mercedes, if they had the right baby faces, Mercedes is a cocky prima donna, would be a monster heel in AEW, especially after that interview when she says, yeah, ultimately I'll go back to WWE. And for people out there that are going to act like they weren't offended by it, hardcore AEW fans, you're a liar. Because imagine if CM Punk or Cody Rhodes or Jade Cargill did an interview after signing back with WWE, especially for the two guys. And in the interview, they say, you know what? Ultimately, I'll be back in AEW. Like I'm here now to have a little fun and do this and that. And but ultimately, I'll be back in AEW. You see how WWE handles that. All right. I have no problem with Mercedes banking big bucks. No one has a goddamn clue how much money she's making in AEW. I read I'm going to say it the way I want to say it. I read some of the most retarded posts today. Mercedes possibly making the most money amongst women in wrestling. Likely, possibly. That means you don't know. I possibly might get laid tomorrow. I don't know. I got to show you this. This is the poster child of what is wrong with the media world and for wrestling fans that turn to the media. A lot of wrestling fans, what made the DTKC show the number one show for years? Since 1997, I opine. What is that? I give opinions. Opining is opinions. At some points, we were reporting news. I had some connections that I built back then, but it's too much hard work. And I stopped doing news about 2007. But since 97, I opine. I give you my opinions. You don't have to take my opinions. I give you a viewpoint. I'm straight out honest with it. I might give a viewpoint that no one else talks about, and you go wherever you want with that viewpoint. Kev gives a very intelligent viewpoint, gives you a perspective about wrestling, and you take it and you run with it, however you feel. So wrestling fans of today, the podcasters, the blogs, why do you think Cornette is blowing up with his viewers? Because Cornette is an opiner. Jim Cornette doesn't break news. Jim Cornette and Brian Last read other people's news. They don't hide that. They're doing absolutely nothing wrong. They react to stories. They hear about this. Oh, this happens. They react to it. The biggest shows out there opine. Dutch Mantel. Is Dutch Mantel a reporter? No. Is his co-host a reporter? No. They read the news that's being reported by others and they react to it. You look at Vince Russo. As much as some of you hate Vince Russo, I love Vince Russo, but Vince, he's out there when he did a show the other day where he said Vince McMahon secretly trying to buy AEW. Huh? I read it and I'm like, Vince, God bless any money you make off of that episode, because he must laugh inside. He's like, I can't believe these idiots fucking are watching this. He gives opinions, as out there as they may be sometimes. Eric Bischoff and Conrad, reeling everybody in. Are they reporters? No. They opine. Bischoff gives his opinions. So why are these shows so huge? Because people are tuning in to hear their opinions. Some very, very big on AEW. Some very, very against AEW. Some in the middle with AEW. It is very important for fans to go to news sites, podcasters, blogs, me, anybody that does this. But when you see a big bulk of the wrestling news world, I saw it Wednesday. I did my Patreon show Wednesday afternoon. I normally do it Tuesday night, but I got stuck in Long Island for something. And this was like 6 hours before Mercedes Moné debuted in AEW. And I'm watching people doing these special episodes. Mercedes, this is what AEW needed. She's a game changer. This is where AEW goes to the next level. And I'm watching this and I'm saying, either you are some of the most brain-dead, moronic people, or you might as well strip naked and show nothing, reveal that you have nothing but lamb fur all over your body because you're all sheep. Or you're just suckering the suckers out there to buy into it because you think that's the most popular viewpoint. I saw trending on Wednesday, game changer, CEO, game changer. And look at the fucking rating. Wednesday afternoon, I said, forgive me for being very, very mute about this because it's not a game changer for AEW. Jay White is not a game changer for AEW. Will Ospreay is not a game changer for AEW. Shit, I didn't even mention fucking Okada. Okada, Collision, 400-something thousand viewers. He's not a game changer in AEW. Adam Copeland, Christian Cage, FTR, AEW, whatever you want to choose. Then none of them are game changers for AEW. But guess what? When Cody Rhodes returned to the WWE, I pointed this out. 2 weeks after WrestleMania was over, the ratings were lower than when Cody debuted. It wasn't Cody's fault in any way. What did that show you? Cody Rhodes was not going to pull in all these extra viewers because he's now in the WWE, even though this was right after he left AEW. Look at The Rock. Last week, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins built all week long, confront Roman Reigns and The Rock, and Cody slaps The Rock. And the viewership only went up about 100,000. That still may sound like a lot of people, but when you're averaging 2.2 million, 2.3 million, that's only about 5%. Nobody individually is a game changer. Collectively, it's a game changer. And the problem is, AEW's mindset is, we give you quality matches. Unfortunately for Commander, unfortunately for the CMLL guys, unfortunately for the Kingdom, unfortunately for the Anarchy of Rights, unfortunately for 3/4 of that roster, AEW's never given me a reason to emotionally want to root for the person, emotionally want to like the person, emotionally want to see them get their head knocked off. And you look at WWE, you look at Logan Paul, you look at Braun Breaker, you look at all the newbies. WWE takes their time to make sure that there's a connection with the WWE universe. If you don't connect, you're in catering with Cameron Grimes, just like we called it. Candice LeRae had to turn heel because, unfortunately, unless you're in Australia and Indy Hartwell's by your side, she gets no pop. A lot of people that get very little reaction. Wah! Yeah! Yeah! Xia Li. I just don't have the body. If you don't have a reaction from that crowd, good or bad, heel or face, WWE moves on. AEW never, for the most part, for a lot of people that are on TV. I look at Rampage, I look at Collision, and half the people I don't care about. As much as Julie Hart has improved, she could look like she's on Xanax. She could have a great look. She's improved in the ring. For some reason, I still don't care if she's on TV or she's not. Do you honestly feel that suddenly Tony Khan, after 30 years, had an epiphany? Wow, I got to take the women's division to another level. When you have that kind of money, you could blow $5 million. And if it doesn't work out, oh well. So you're not going to give me 30 years of Tony Khan's fandomhood and the last 4 or 5 years of AEW, and suddenly because Mercedes Mone comes in, that game changer. Game changer what? Her versus Willow? Ooh. That's a WrestleMania-esque match. Yeah, if you're an indie promotion, WrestleMania weekend around the vicinity. Oh, but Sasha, Mercedes Mone versus Saraya. Maybe this time Saraya could break Mercedes' neck. Why do I care? Oh, they're teasing DMD versus CEO. What are we playing on letters? Are we Sesame Street? Are we fucking Speak and Spell? AEW never spends the time to make me emotionally invested in someone just because they have a great match. I don't care. So Mercedes showing up, that's great. She's going to feud with Willow. I don't care. She's going to feud with Chris Statlander. Sorry. You kind of fucked up Chris Statlander the last bunch of months. Who? Hikaru Shida? Are you joking? Riho? Seriously? Did anybody see Rio's Northern Lights, I think, suplex yesterday? She did some move, and she did it on Willow, and I'm like, yeah, that made me feel like my 12-year-old niece trying to put that on me. It looks so stupid, and look at the ratings. Mercedes is not going to be this massive draw. If you are a huge fan and AEW is coming to your neighborhood and the tickets are cheap, I'd go. Mercedes did great on Wednesday. Mercedes did great. Let me repeat that. Mercedes did great. She said the right things. You felt it. I'm happy that she's back on TV. But unfortunately, just like listen, please do not get insulted when I say AEW is a last place team. I don't mean it like that. What I'm saying is you look at that women's division. Who on that women's division would you have her feel outside of Toni Storm? If Jamie Hayter was back, maybe, but outside of Toni Storm, who would you drop and order a pay-per-view to see her face in that company? There's nobody. There is nobody. So I'm watching all this media on Wednesday afternoon, right before I do my Patreon show, and I'm seeing, Mercedes is a game changer. This is the shot in arm AEW needed. And it's kind of like somebody like me who's fat. I'm not 300 pounds anymore. Now I'm about 270. All right. I was about 290 about 3 months ago. This dog is kicking my ass. I'm losing weight like crazy because I'm constantly running around. Get that screw out of your mouth. But the thing is, there's nothing on that company. Like, I could go on the scale tomorrow and not drink water all night long and say, oh, I lost 2 pounds. Hey, this is the turning point I needed. Or I could, be a team that is missing a lot of elements, and you sign the hottest free agent, big time superstar. That person's all over your advertisements now. And you might draw whenever they're appearing in a game. But after a while, when one person can't turn, and wrestling, you need hundreds of people, dozens of people. When in sports, when that superstar cannot take all the average people and elevate them to superstar status, that person usually gets traded. So what's going to happen with Mercedes? She's going to cut promos. She's going to wrestle Queen Aminata. She's going to wrestle some dumb fuck. She's going to have a stare down and confrontation with someone. She's going to come to the defense of Willow. She will team up with Willow. Then there'll be a little bit of friction. Look at Adam Copeland. Look at Adam Copeland. Adam Copeland came there, and how many fucking months has he been there? And if I were to turn the TV off 3 months ago, went to sleep, and then woke up 3 months later and see that he's fucking with Christian and some punk and his mother and a dinosaur, I would have been like, oh, I guess I didn't miss anything. They brought him in for name value, and then once he's there, you're like, yeah, what's going on? Jay White, yeah, what's going on? Will Ospreay feels a little different. I admit it. Will Ospreay feels a little different. I think Will Ospreay actually could force something. But look at Swerve Strickland, man. Swerve Strickland, they should have put that belt on him in January. You know, you want to give fans blue balls, and you want to tease them and tease them and tease them and tease them. This way, when they finally get the orgasm, they fucking shoot a load all over the fucking side of a house. You know, after a while, you keep getting blue balls. After a while, you're like, man, fuck this. I'm going to go eat something instead. Because Swerve Strickland. Because they had to postpone it and postpone it and tease it and postpone it and postpone it. And multiple Hangman Page in there. As soon as Hangman Page was thrown into that match, I said, I'm not ordering it. And I can't on this show. And I said, the reason why I'm not ordering is because Hangman Page now is going to be the one to eat the pin, because they don't want Samoa Joe to lose the belt yet, and they don't want Swerve to be pinned. So they'll have Hangman Page do the duties on it, and they'll do it in a stupid way. So Hangman Page, it feels like he doesn't lose any worth. And that's exactly what happened. When you see time limit draws, so-and-so wrestles so-and-so to a time limit draw, that's not, oh, it was so epic, you know, that you're going to remember it 10 years from now. You know what it is? Shit, I don't want Hangman Page to lose. Shit, I don't want Daniel Bryan to lose. Shit, I don't want Swerve Strickland to lose. Shit, I don't want Hangman Page. Shit, I don't want Jay White to lose. Shit, I don't want Swerve. I got it. Let's do a time limit draw. And then we'll tease 5 more minutes, and then we accomplish nothing. But then it feels like, oh, it was such an amazing match, and then it's basically AEW's way of saying, no, we're going to put 2 people together, but we really don't want to start elevating one over the other, so we'll do a time limit draw. Fans have figured it out. Fans have figured it out. Fans know, and I'll end with this. Fans know in their heart what AEW likes to push and what they don't. If that was the case, CMLL guys would not be pushed for a forbidden door. With all due respect, nothing against them whatsoever. Mystico I like, but 99% of CMLL guys, I don't give a flying fuck if they're going to wrestle on a forbidden door. Even in New York, 10 minutes from my house. Why? Because CMLL has never given American wrestling fans a reason to care about these people. There's no reason for me to care. When I see Commander and I see Action Andretti, I haven't cared about Action Andretti since he fought Jericho. And they keep throwing him out there, the Gates of Agony, throwing him out there and throwing him out. Kyle Fletcher, I'm like, why do I care about these people? Why? Ooh, because they wrestle good. Yeah, if they wrestle good, there's plenty of other shit I could watch. Why is AEW, you look at Mercedes. You could predict exactly what they're going to do with Mercedes. They're not going to give Mercedes to Deonna Purrazzo right now because we don't want to give the perception we're not pushing Deonna. So we got to kind of like shift it and go here. Sky Blue will be the victim out of all of this. Sky Blue will lose more than anybody else. Because Sky Blue is still new. And Sky Blue, she's got a whole future ahead of her. They're not going to drop Taya Valkyrie. They're not going to drop Deonna Purrazzo. They're not going to drop Toni Storm. They're not going to drop Ruby Soho. They're not going to drop Saraya. Saraya might eat a pin here or there because she's not getting pushed. Saraya is like fancy napkins at a restaurant. You go to the restaurant for the food. Of course, you use the napkins, but they're like, oh, wow, these are pretty cool napkins. But Saraya, she's no threat for the women's division. I'm happy she's back. I love watching Saraya on TV. But there's no feeling inside that AEW is going to push Saraya to a championship. Unless they create more belts. So I thought Mercedes did fine. But unfortunately, the mindset of AEW, I figured out a long time ago, and a lot of fans have figured it out. Mercedes Mone is not a game changer in AEW. It'll help them with a TV deal. Absolutely, Mercedes Mone will help get a TV deal renewed for AEW. That I agree. And that's very important. That is super important. Might be more important right now than getting 1 million viewers. But once you start really being honest with yourself and you look at that roster and you say, okay, show me how Mercedes is worth the millions and millions of dollars when she's going to fight Sky Blue, Willow Nightingale, and maybe Queen Aminata, and maybe a Ruby Soho. You want to bring in Julia? Too late. You want to bring in Camille? You got to bring in another 5 women stars. You have to bring in, and this is the most important thing, you have to humble Mercedes Mone too. You better start learning how to do DQ finishes. Mercedes Mone needs to lose a match here and there. You cannot, because someone is a superstar, have everybody go almost undefeated. That's another problem AEW does. They bring someone in, and 95% of the time they win. And then when there's an even match, time limit draw, they better start working more on DQ finishes. There's nothing wrong with a DQ finish once in a while. You have to give the perception that some people in AEW can defeat Mercedes Mone. Because if Mercedes Mone is brought in like this and everybody else is like this, oh, I didn't show you. And meanwhile, you're seeing idiots like this online. This is MSN's website. I know MSN is pretty much dead. Look at this article. You think Triple H really had that look when Mercedes signed with AEW? Do you think Triple H had that look when Okada signed with AEW? You think Triple H had that look when Will Ospreay signed at AEW? Look at this fucking article by this geek, Ella Bennett, and I looked her up, and I think she's only like 20 years old. So she's a rabid wrestling fan, and she thinks because she writes for, like I said, in 2024, anybody that wants to spend the time and type an article could work for Forbes, could work for Sports Illustrated, could work for MSN, any fucking person out there. Any of you out there could do it. Not trying to put anybody down. This fucking nitwit writes, AEW triumphs over WWE in securing top wrestling free agents. Remember the formula I told you all about like 7-8 months ago? Wrestler, very talented. If WWE could get him on the dirt cheap because they really don't need the person right now, yeah, they'll bring him in. But more times than not, you know what? Not the right time. Not the right time to bring in MJF. Not the right time to bring in Okada. Not the right time to bring back Mercedes Mone. AEW didn't outbid WWE for Mercedes Mone. AEW let Mercedes Mone have the freedom to build her brand. Gave her a lot of money. The template that I've talked about for the last 6 months is wrestler has no shot signing with WWE. But the media will give you this perception that Jay White is undecided. WWE wants him. AEW wants him. Jay White, he might go to WWE. Meanwhile, the deal's already done. Because in the end, they want you to feel like WWE was really, really interested in Jay White. Gotta have Jay White. And he chose AEW over WWE. Every time somebody signs, I tell you that. Okada, we talked about it like 6 or 7 weeks ago that he verbally agreed with Tony Khan and AEW. Okada was not going to the WWE. I saw people, Okada versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. What? So Philadelphia could go, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck you? Sorry, guys. Okada's a major, major superstar. He is not a proven superstar in the United States as of yet. He's not a household name. The WWE Universe will not give a shit about Okada. You're not going to have Michael Cole, Corey Graves, or anybody else go like Excalibur and make the WWE Universe feel like they should know who he is. Oh, my God, that's Okada. Oh, Okada's every time somebody goes to AEW that we don't pretty much, it's Shibata. It's Shibata. And Excalibur's talking to us like every single person watching should know. Holy shit, it's Shibata. Oh my God, it's Shibata. Oh my God, it's Ryu Nakanishi. It's Nakanishi. When do we give a shit about these Japanese wrestlers? They've never been pushing the United States before. So that's my feelings on it. That's my feelings on it. I had to rant a little bit because we don't have much to get into today. And we didn't get much in the super shout-outs early on. So Steve Joseph, when do I see WWE splitting the tag team titles? This year for sure. Once WrestleMania comes and goes, and once the Judgment Day drop those tag titles, whoever wins those tag titles are not going to have a very, very strong run. So there'll be an announcement with Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis that the championships will be split amongst the two brands. And I think whoever defeats Judgment Day will defend those titles on both brands. No, Rams fan, I'm only going about an hour or so. We got a big show on Monday, and I'm not passing it off to Monday, but I do a couple of hours here and a couple of hours 2 days from now. Nobody's going to be able to sit for 6 hours of content. So we'll go however long we need to. I'm not leaving yet. But, yeah, once the Judgment Day drop these belts, you will then see more of the discussion of those tag team titles being split. See, whether people realize it or not, as much as I'm not feeling AOP, and they've done damage to the Street Profits, although I have this weird feeling Street Profits may win at WrestleMania, WWE is quietly trying to rebuild the tag team division. I should rephrase that. They're trying to make some of these tag teams feel more important. DIY, Alpha Academy, the Tyler Bate and Butch, I'm not calling them the Catches Clan, Clack, whatever the fuck, I don't know, whoever came up with that name. You got the Street Profits, you got AOP, you got several other men's, they're slowly trying to build these teams up a little bit extra worth. That's what they've been doing for the last 4 or 5 months, trying to boost the tag team division without putting in a huge influx of tag teams. That's when you'll see the tag team titles considered to be split. It'll happen this year. It will happen this year. And you ask, is it true that Miro moved back to his home in Bulgaria? Not necessarily. Miro is a United States citizen now. He's been a U.S. citizen for several years now. He does have family, and I think he has property in Bulgaria. When him and CJ Perry split, he did visit his family. But moving back to Bulgaria, I think that's kind of a stretch. And I will say this, if Miro had to move out of the house that he lived with CJ Perry, you know, how many wrestlers out there have a second home in the United States? So it's not like Miro could say, oh, you know, I have to move. Oh, let me go to my other house. Nah, he didn't have another house. What is he going to do? Go to a Holiday Inn for the foreseeable future? So he went back to Bulgaria because that's where he had property and family. But did he move back there? No. And if he comes back to AEW soon, They're not going to be flying him in back and forth from Bulgaria. Plus, you got to think of passport issues as well. He's a United States citizen. He might have dual citizenship, but no, he is not back permanently in Bulgaria. So thank you, Steve. Bernard. What's up, Bernard? Can I share some memories of Magnificent Morocco? I think he was ahead of his time and barely gets mentioned. Shout out to He's Boring promo on Pat Patterson. Quickly, Magnificent Morocco is in my top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time. Magnificent Morocco was in my top 3 before Hulkamania came around. It was Snuka, it was Morocco, 1, 2. Those are my favorites. Morocco, I saw when he was feuding with Pedro, then feuding with Rocky Johnson. Then I started getting the wrestling magazines and getting magazines from the 70s and the early 80s. Magnificent Morocco was spectacular on the mic. He got the fans chanting Beach Bum against him at a time where fans didn't chant all that much. Morocco didn't have to do a hell of a lot in the ring. Morocco was slow. He was methodical. Loved his tombstone pile driver, but man, he could talk. I will never, ever forget Buddy Rogers' corner when Snuka dove on him and they did the big red X that built the feud. I still remember it to this day. He was wearing a bandana. He had the green Intercontinental title. He had tan pants on. And Buddy Rogers, who to me always was like a potted plant, had no charisma whatsoever. I'll never forget when he grabbed that microphone. Snuka was going to fight Don Cornoodle. Don Cornoodle, I think, was waiting in the ring to have the match against Snuka. And Morocco grabbed the microphone, Buddy Rogers! And he just went off. He was talking about Tito and Rocky Johnson, and he doesn't get the attention, the acknowledgement he deserves. And then here comes Snuka walking down the rampway. He has the nerve on my time when the champ is here. And the rest is history. Morocco, to me, one of the greatest in the WWF in the 80s, especially the early to mid 80s. Unfortunately, once Hulkamania kicked in and steroids were totally out of control, Morocco blew up. Seriously, like a bad Tom and Jerry cartoon. Remember the Tom and Jerry cartoon where Tom has the balloon and he breathes in the balloon and he goes, and his head goes like this? That was Morocco on roids. When he blew up and they did that pile driver music video and I saw him, I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck happened to him? But that was, to him, that was the only way to keep going. I loved Morocco. I loved his podcast. I was very, very pissed off. I don't remember that co-host's name. When he announced that the show was ending because of a time difference, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You're ending it because you're not getting enough views. That's just awful. Morocco hasn't been seen since. Morocco is great, man. Fucking love Magnificent Morocco. Absolutely love him. Even when he used to joke about Patterson and others, Morocco is great. Big fan of Morocco. Byron Cutler says, gaming season has started. Yes, WWE 2K24. I am going to order it. I'm going to get the computer version of it. No, I don't see myself streaming gaming on YouTube. Everybody does that. Like for what? Seriously. It would be fun and everything. Like if I created a wrestler and decided to do something outside the box, fine. But really, I'm going to go out there. Look, everybody, I'm CM Punk. I hope everybody's having a ball playing that game. It looks like an awesome game. They got some game modes on there. The Royal Rumble, the Gauntlet match. I tell you, that Gauntlet Battle Royale is something I wish WWE would do. But I also picture it would be an absolute clusterfuck. If you did a Gauntlet Battle Royale, instead of people getting thrown over the top rope, they have to get pinned or submitted. You have 30 people in the ring. Can you imagine the referee? The referee will just blow his brains out. I mean, just trying to count pins and stuff it sounds like a great idea until you actually execute it. That's the game I want to play the most. Am I going to watch the gaming events this summer? Yeah, I'll watch some of them. Austin Nance, any news on Sheamus? Supposed to be back. He got married. He was out injured. He's supposed to be back. I don't understand what they're waiting for. I will tell you this. It's not news. So, if it happens, it happens. But there's been some discussion of considering bringing Sheamus to NXT and kind of confront Ridge Holland. Not that Ridge injured him or anything, but because of Ridge's change of attitude. But then NXT kind of changed Ridge Holland's character in NXT. So I don't know how that would play out at this point. But Sheamus has got to be coming back soon, I would think. He's supposed to be in Philly for WrestleMania weekend. So I'm hoping some fans, and look, a lot of podcasters out there are going to be interviewing a lot of WWE stars. We know what's going on with Vince. You get the opportunity to talk to Sheamus. Don't ask him, what do you think about the Vince allegations? Instead, Sheamus, when are you coming back? Let the wrestler feel like you care about the wrestler, not what the wrestler's reaction is to some 80-year-old pervert. So I'm sure we'll hear something soon. There's no updates on Vince. Vince is going to, through his lawyer, respond to the lawsuit. They'll do it when they're ready to do it. And we go from there. Simple as that. Mark Hicks, there's no issues with CM Punk and Booker T. I think people forget. Chat room, help me with this. Help me with this. Who was the person that Booker T had a little bit of words with that they tried to play it off as a feud? And was it Corey Graves? Who was the person that Booker T had some words with and they played it off on social media that there was issues and there really wasn't any? It might be Corey Graves back in the day. I could be wrong. Look, people were reporting that it was over a banana in catering. It's just Booker T having some fun. There's no issue. CM Punk has been there trying to mentor and help some of the stars of tomorrow. He wants to be there. Booker T is a team player through and through. It's WrestleMania season. They're not going to have a big blowout because of, yes, thank you, Bernard. Corey Graves. Booker, it was Corey Graves. I remember that. And people were reporting this. And I think Kevin and I were doing shows at the time. We were like, nah, man, there's nothing going on between those two. There's people trying to cause chaos. Nothing CM Punk Booker T. Roderick Howard is asking thoughts on Wardlow after last Wednesday. He was arguably the hottest babyface in AEW during his feud with MJF and has since seemed directionless. Now he lost another big match. Roderick, I'm not throwing shade on you. I'm kind of like proving my point, what I said earlier. What did people think was going to happen on Wednesday? Did anybody think Wardlow was next in line as heavyweight title? AEW don't do DQs. I mean, while everybody was saying, oh my God, Wardlow's getting a title shot, a lot of other people were like, he ain't winning this. Honestly, AEW's done shit with Wardlow for years. Powerhouse Hobbs. Need I say more? Even before he was walking the streets of LA, when they were doing the book of Hobbs, when he was walking LA and walking in those ghetto areas, I was laughing at those skits. I'm like, he might as well just walk into another state because this is not suddenly giving him a push. You know what it felt like? It felt like AEW, like, we have to be a little bit more about the person. We need to let people understand about Hobbs and his upbringing and the demons and the battles and what his family went through and let people, and then they were like, nah, we don't do that shit. Let's just throw Commander versus Takeshita on TV. They don't do that. They were doing these skits. And I'm saying to myself, and people were like, finally, remember that? Finally, they're giving Hobbs a push. And I'm like, let's see 2 months from now. Every single time. You see, take a shot every time you see a goof on social media, right? They're finally giving this person an opportunity. And then you see 2 months from now. They're finally giving Jay White an opportunity. And he did the Continental Classic. They're finally going to start pushing Jay White. Next thing you know, he's scissoring. He's fucking scissoring. Psycho, what is the worst match I watched? I've been watching wrestling since 79. You know, I think of Angelo Mosca Jr. I think of Shamel versus Jenna Maraska. I mean, you know, there's been many shit, man. Myself, worst match I ever saw live and in person, me in the ring. Me. Yeah, that's the worst match I ever saw. I had people chanting, "You can't wrestle. You can't wrestle." I'm like, yeah. I'm the most dangerous person in wrestling. Everyone, I used to cut promos. Louis, you better watch out, motherfucker. I am the most dangerous person in wrestling. You want to know why, Louis? Because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'll drop you on your head without even realizing it. I'll fucking go to pick you up and I'll accidentally paralyze you. I am the most dangerous person in wrestling because I don't know what I'm doing. Run DMG. Do I think we will ever get Rock versus Cody in a singles match? No, I don't think so. Rock is going to turn on Roman or vice versa. I think I've figured out. I teased this on Patreon. I'm going to bring it up on Monday. Somebody got mad last week. Oh, my God. I know what it was, the Kevin Kelly thing. I didn't see the Kevin Kelly tweets. And I said, I'm going to talk about it with Kev on Monday. And this person got mad and is like, you keep pushing things off for Monday. Well, I might as well not listen to the show anymore. And I looked at last Friday's show, and there was a synopsis this deep of topics we talked about. And the only thing we didn't talk about was Kevin Kelly. And this person's like, stop pushing stuff over to Monday. Well, guess what? I'm going to push this off to Monday because I want Kev's reaction. I know this sounds dumb, but when I get, over the years, crazy predictions right, every little detail. Most recently, I pissed people off when I predicted Killswitch not only winning that gauntlet, but Killswitch giving the opportunity to Christian. And at the end of the night, Edge is going to win the TNT title, and then Christian is going to cash in with Killswitch's opportunity and beat Edge right back for the belt. Go look it up on YouTube. It's there the week before. Why do I nail these so accurate? I'll give you a little reveal, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but it is true. This is exactly what I do. Kid you not. I legitimately close my eyes. And being a wrestling fan for this many years and using logic, and sometimes you got to think in the eyes of AEW or WWE. The reason why a lot of people get match predictions wrong is because they root for the match how they want to see it happen instead of how WWE would see it happen. I saw everybody and their mother photoshopping the Intercontinental Championship on Chad Gable, that Chad Gable's winning this. Chad Gable's winning this. He's doing it for his daughter. How could he not do it for his daughter? They made you care about his daughter so much. Chad Gable's winning this gauntlet. And 5-6 weeks ago, I said it's going to be Sami Zayn. Why? Because sometimes you got to think of it in the eyes of WWE. Wrestling is supposed to break your heart once in a while. Wrestling is breaking Chad Gable's heart right now. Wrestling is breaking the fans of Chad Gable's heart right now. Somebody's heart has to be broken. This is not the hot chocolate and coloring book era where everybody gets the warm emoji. Somebody has to pay once in a while. So when I think of matches sometimes, I legitimately close my eyes and I think of different scenarios. And as I'm thinking of the scenarios, I'm trying to picture how the crowd would react to it. And I've come up with something with Rock and Roman Reigns that we're going to talk about on Monday. And when I bring it up, I want everybody to close their eyes and picture this as it's happening. I'm not going to bet the ranch on it, but I feel very, 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 very strong inside that this is going to happen. And I think it's going to happen almost exactly the way I paint it. And when I say it, I think people are going to, I'll give you a little hint. You know that handshake? You know that handshake that Roman and Rock does? That handshake is going to be extremely important on night 2. Something's going to happen from that handshake. That handshake is going to be the moment for night 2. Giving you a little inside teaser now, but that's how I get it. I legitimately close my eyes. I envision. You remember it was Wrestling with Shadows. If you ever watched Bret Hart's Wrestling with Shadows, you remember that clip where the Hart Foundation is fighting, I think, the Legion of Doom and Steve Austin, I think Ken Shamrock, maybe somebody else, and Pat Patterson is, basically explaining how he wants the match to go down. And as he's explaining it to the wrestlers, we see it actually happening exactly the way that it is in the ring. And the crowd is reacting and everything like that. And they even had Stu get involved and everything. And right at the very end, Pat Patterson goes, "That's the story." I try to do that. Like, I look at different scenarios and I legitimately say to myself, that's the story. And that's what I think is going to happen. And a lot of times it does. Tristan Sloan, what do I think of when Chavo turned to Kerwin White? At the time, I hated it. It was funny because it came across as a rich, white, racist sort of. And, if it's not white, it's not right. If it ain't white, it ain't right. We were doing a Minority Report podcast at that time. And man, did we have fun with that. Because our show, for those that maybe are not members of our Made Men and Women or patrons, we've been putting a lot of Minority Report episodes. I found hundreds of Minority Report episodes from 05 to 07, I think it is, or 08, around there. And, our shows were me, Fat Italian, Kev Castle, Irish and Italian, Joey 924, Spanish, Black Moses, Black, Smoked Out, Black. Who else was on there? I'm forgetting somebody. But, we had all different racist. Racist. We had all different races on the show. So when Kerwin White came along, and we all had fun with that. I loved the song. It sounded like a Frank Sinatra song. I loved the song. I had it in my phone. I don't know if I had it as a ringtone, but I loved the song. But then when Eddie passed away, and, if I remember correctly, when he wrestled Triple H, did he still have the blonde hair? I think he might have still had the blonde hair. I'm glad that they ditched the Kerwin White character shortly thereafter. It was interesting, but I don't think anybody wanted that. BobbyMeans. Where would I rank the Eddie Guerrero-Rey Mysterio feud? That was good, man. That was good because they put Dominic in that. I still remember when Eddie was sitting in the middle of the ring reading like bedtime stories and, claiming to be the daddy of Dominic. The interesting thing about it, without getting too deep, is that, you got to remember the time frame here. I was friends with somebody his nickname was Mongo, not Steve McMichael. If anybody watches some old XPW shows, you'll see him sitting right where I was in the timekeeper's table because I was doing timekeeping at the time. I always called him Meatloaf. Even though his nickname was Mongo, he died a couple of years ago. I paid tribute to him on the show. But I always called him Meatloaf because to me, he always looked like the singer of Meatloaf. Very big guy, very intimidating. Anybody ever went to indie wrestling shows here in the Northeast in the 2000s, there was always this big, stocky guy selling luchador masks. If anybody remembers the big, stocky guy with the long hair that looked like he was the singer Meatloaf selling luchador masks, that was Mongo. I was good friends with him. He was the one that helped me get Damien and Halloween into USA Pro Wrestling, and very, very good friends with him. The reason why I'm bringing this up was because when Ray and Eddie were having this feud, because of their history in Mexico, especially Rey Mysterio, everybody knew that they were very tight. They were very, very close. The storyline on TV was done exceptionally well. But for people that were in the know, everybody knew that they were very, very close. I don't remember if Eddie was Dominic, if he's the godfather for Dominic. He might be the godfather for Dominic. I could be wrong with that. It might be Conan, actually. But one of them is. But they were very, very tight. But you want to know something? It's like I used to say with DX, the Click. When you get to work your friend, a best friend, a close friend, it's that much more fun. Bailey is having a ball right now, feuding with Dakota Kai, Io Sky. When you get to work against your friends, it's not that it breaks your heart like, oh, we got to fight each other. Man, we can't go up and down the road. Sure, you miss that. But when you get the opportunity to feud with somebody you care about, it's that much more fun. Even when Razor and Diesel and Triple H raise a 1, 2, 3 kid, you get to work your friends in the feud, man, makes it 10 times more fun. Yeah, this is a good one. Rams fan asks, am I surprised we're getting Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton versus Logan Paul and not Randy Orton and Logan Paul one-on-one at WrestleMania 40? Yes. I honestly thought that was a letdown today. Nothing against Kevin Owens. This felt like we got nothing for Kevin this year. That's what it felt like. Fans wanted Randy versus Logan. In hindsight, over the last 2 weeks, we probably should have saw this coming when we were like, why is Randy Orton and Kevin Owens still? Because I will say this, there were a decent number of people that thought we were going to get Randy Orton and Kevin Owens versus Grayson Waller and Austin Theory at WrestleMania. For the last 2 weeks, there was a decent number of people online thinking it was that, which obviously it's not. I still think Grayson Waller and Austin Theory may fight each other. But this felt lessened. You know, and if you listen to crowd reaction, when Nick Aldis mentioned Kevin Owens, that crowd reaction did not sound extremely strong. I mean, look, we like Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is great, but I think the fans wanted to see Logan and Randy Orton one-on-one. Now, when you start thinking about it, you could see Randy RKOing Kevin Owens. Logan Paul throws Randy Orton out of the ring, sneaks a victory. You know, that's kind of like my first reaction is to that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to see that. It always happens. It happens more times than not on three ways. Somebody's about to win, and then they get thrown to the outside, and someone else steals it. Didn't I call that with Roman Reigns recently? I said that, I said Roman will steal a victory from someone who's this close of getting it. It was fun tonight, the overacting by Austin Theory when he took the stunner from Kevin Owens and then he popped up into an RKO from Randy Orton. That reminded me of when Rock used to take stunners from Steve Austin. If anybody remembers when The Rock sometimes would take a stunner from Steve Austin, he would bounce up and fly backwards sometimes, and it was funny, funny shit. I mean, we know what wrestling is, and yeah, that seemed... Listen, I guarantee you some AEW hardcores are having a field day right now on Twitter. Like, for everybody who rips AEW, defend this. I fucking guarantee you're going to see that all over Twitter tonight. Defend this. And they're going to show Austin Theory doing that. All right. How long we gone so far? We've done 75 minutes. We could go a little longer. I'm tired, man. I had to do my taxes today for not only my office, but for these shows. We have to pay taxes on these shows, and that's not fun. So, yeah, we had to pay taxes. I hope everybody who has a business got their taxes in today, or at least filed an extension. For individuals and, for people personally, you have until, I think, April 15th. But today is the deadline for businesses, so I was working on my taxes last night, man. It sucked. All right. Who hasn't asked a question yet? Douche says that he thinks the issue is that they want a long title reign. They want long title reigns, and that wouldn't happen with Randy versus Logan one-on-one. They care less about titles being on TV shows these days. No, they do care. It's just it's WrestleMania season. Why would you blow your load just weeks before Mania? That's why even with the tag team match last week against Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, like you see them getting close to a victory and they're panning the crowd, and the crowd is like when I think Shayna Baszler got a 2 count and you see a guy in the crowd go, oh! I'm like, if you actually thought that was going to go to 3, I got a fucking bridge to sell you. Or were they just doing that, like going like, and this was the guy's reaction on TV. 1, 2, oh! You want to know what he was saying inside? 1, 2. Oh, if I get this on TV. I hate when fake people on TV see something and they do this. Red light. I mean, it's just fans being fans. I don't lose sleep over it, but some people, man, shit. Yeah, fuck taxes. Trust me, if it was up to me, I wouldn't pay taxes. I just can't risk getting in trouble. So I will tell you this, though. We made so little in 2023, we didn't have to pay too much taxes. That's one good thing. I mean, in the last 5 years, the revenue's down about 65%, but then that means we pay less taxes. So it's like, hey, all right, that's the trade-off. It sucks, but why aren't the Von Erich signed? Run, do you want the honest answer? It's not very... I don't want to say they're not very good, but what's so special about them? Why? Because they're a Von Erich? Because a movie came out? Because of the beloved family? Because of Kevin Von Erich's sons? Like, why? Listen, I'll say this. WWE, more times than not, loves to sign second and third generation stars. So if you're going to go just that aspect, yeah, I'm a little surprised that they didn't even get an NXT run. But, I watched the Von Erichs. I saw the little bit they did in AEW a few times, and they're good. I saw them stuff in MLW. I thought they're good. But you got to think of the overall masses. You don't want them to come in to be enhancement talent. This is why, when you saw that dopey news article before, like, you tell me how Okada or Ospreay fits in on the main roster right now. There's no room. It's the wrong time. Mercedes, She wants to build her brand. She wants freedom to do movies. She wants freedom to do this. That all is a major reason why she signed with AEW. People that are saying she possibly is making the most. Possibly means you fucking don't know, but you got to get a headline out there, and that makes you worthless to me. They don't know. They think. And you know why they do that? Because AEW has to have the biggest grab. AEW has to sign the most free agents. AEW has to have the biggest contracts. When you start seeing, you know when I'll change my view on AEW with that? When you start seeing people leaving WWE that's not named Jennifer Pepperman for AEW instead. Adam Copeland, yeah, but that was because WWE had no plans for him. See, I want to see WWE stars that WWE has plans for, and they say, no, I'm not going to re-sign. People were saying that about Drew McIntyre, it didn't happen. People were saying that about AJ Styles, it didn't happen. People were saying that about numerous people, it didn't happen. When I start seeing, like WCW at the time, Scott Hall left, Razor left, Macho Man, little different. WWF, Vince wanted Macho Man more in a commentator's role. But when you start seeing decent, it doesn't even have to be main eventers. You start seeing multiple WWE stars that who are getting some pushes, decide, you know what? No, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to AEW. When I start seeing that, then I'll say, okay, they're going to greener pastures. Some people did that with TNA back in the day. Christian Cage is the first one that comes to mind. Christian, I think, deserved more in the WWF at that time. I'm saying when he was a singles guy. I'll never forget the feud with John Cena. I'm telling you, I got to pull that episode. In fact, maybe I'll put that episode up this weekend for Patreon and on Made Men and Women on YouTube. I think it was the battle rap. It was something with Christian Cage and John Cena. Might have been a battle rap or something. But I remember us doing a podcast and saying, man, it sure feels like Christian is fucking taking that momentum away from John Cena. As weird as that sounds now, and then look, Christian Cage is tremendous as a heel, obviously. But back then, you could feel the momentum shifting from John Cena to Christian Cage. And it felt like WWE pulled the rug from underneath Christian Cage. I remember us covering it. We covered it that night, and then a couple of weeks later, we were like, what the fuck is WWE doing? Are they intentionally trying to sabotage Christian because he's getting over with the fans? It sure felt that way, and he left. I mean, that and going to TNA, there's more in the middle, but trust me, through the TV, we felt that. QT Marshall is back with AEW. He left, wasn't as much out there than he expected, got a little bit of job security in AEW. Look, as much as I used to criticize QT Marshall, he's actually got worth in AEW, even behind the scenes. QT Marshall has worth. So, if you could sign him, have him do multiple duties, and he's not demanding an extremely high salary, I would bring him in. I would. Isaiah is asking, will WWE go TVMA when he moved to Netflix next year? No. Netflix will have advertisers. I know what people have told you all. Netflix is having commercials. They need advertisers just like USA Network or Fox or anybody else. Under new ownership, TKO Group Holdings, yeah, the attitude will change a little bit in WWE, but you save the vulgar language for social media. TV, you have to worry about standards and practices and keeping the advertisers happy. That does not change because you go to Netflix. Rock may not be censored as much on Netflix as he is on Fox, but no, it's WWE's not going TVMA on a regular basis ever, ever, ever. Where is Brian Pillman Jr.? He's probably in a hotel room or he's home. If he lives in Florida, it's late. It's 11:30 at night. What do you mean, where is he? He's in NXT, doing his Lexus King, taking his time, building his work. He's improved since he signed. He's doing well. No need to bring him to the main roster. Oh, Lexus King, he's got his whole career ahead of him. You know, people need to understand. It's not just improving Lexus King. Whether people want to admit it or not, they had to do the same thing with Jade Cargill. Do you know what that is? They had to remove the bad habits that they built in AEW. You know, for years and years and years, you have a certain style upon your training, and you don't have people scrutinizing even the little things that you're not doing crisp. And that becomes a bad habit. It becomes a bad habit. You know, like if I just sat like this all the time, if I sat like this and I keep doing it, after a while, you know, I get into a bad habit and I'll keep doing the same thing. You don't want to get into bad habits. And, you know, that doesn't happen overnight. It happens with reps and weeks and months. And that's why Lexus King, you take your time, because he's got to get the bad habits out of his system. Then they build. You got to start with the right foundation. If you know there's a couple of faults in the foundation, you don't try to build around those faults. You fix those faults, then you build. That's what they're doing with Lexus King right now. All right, let's do 3 more questions, and we will call it. So don't forget. Oh, a little announcement. For those that don't tune in to the Monday show, I got an announcement for everybody. First off, quick plug. This Monday, March 11th, after Raw, WWE Raw, Kevin and I will be live in our Discord at 11:15 p.m. for the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show. That's the right date. There you go. I had the wrong date up there. That's the right date. March 18th, 2024, 11:15 p.m. after Raw. We also got another announcement. Let me put it on the screen. Let me just pull it up. Here we go. It's right here. A lot of you have wanted a return to Sunday nights. Well, you got it at least one time in the very near future. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday, March 24th, 2024 at 8 p.m. Eastern. Kevin and I will be live. It'll be audio only. Kevin and I will be live streaming from YouTube for Q&A episode. It's going to be all Q&A. Ask DTKC. So for everybody out there that has been clamoring to ask Kevin and I a question, or you wanted a live show on YouTube with Kevin and I next Sunday, 8 p.m. We'll see what the turnout is. I appreciate everybody who gave me that suggestion. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that financially obviously want to support the shows as well. It's one of the reasons why we're doing it, obviously. But that gives everybody a little bit easier way. Plus, I get it. I understand Discord is not the smoothest app to have on your phone. And a lot of you do tune into the shows live through your phone. Discord is supposedly fixing some bugs. But next Sunday, 8 o'clock, Kevin and I will be live on YouTube. We'll go as long as needed. You know, we were going to try a concept that some people do on YouTube, but I don't think we're going to do it the first time around. But if we change our mind between now and next Sunday, I'll let everybody know next week. But we are going to have a fun episode. And, you know, depending on the turnout, And depending on, what kind of draw we get, even revenue-wise, that'll dictate how long the show goes. I was joking with Kev about it the other day, and Kev is like, man, if people keep coming and it keeps showing up, we'll go as long as we need, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it takes. So we'll see what happens. We're not taking calls. Absolutely not taking calls. We're just doing a live Q&A, keeping it simple, keeping it fun, and we'll go from there. So Kevin says DTKC, both of them will be in AMSR mode, whatever that means. Whatever that means. If that means we're going to make some money, yeah, we'll be good with that. Let's see. Let's wrap this up. Let's see who has a question. The other Kevin is asking, how did the Sandman convince his wife to allow herself to be pile drive by Rhino from the ring apron through a table on the outside in Hardcore Heaven 2000 Milwaukee? She wanted to be part of the storyline. I got news for you. Rhino versus Sandman in 2000 was a pretty hot feud. Lori Fullington, she was badass, man. I mean, look, I even said, Lori Fullington was probably, look, she was not a wrestler, obviously. That's what made the feud even better because nobody expected her to be taking bumps. But understand, too, Rhino deserves a lot of props, man. Rhino is very, very good. And this is 2000. This is 24 years ago. Rhino was very good. And Rhino was crazy fucking strong. And he made sure he was going to protect her. Hey, if you want a good example, if you're going to bring up Rhino and Lori Fullington, I'll give you a good one. Bubba Ray Dudley, Devon Dudley, and Mae Young. Mae Young took that bump because she trusted Bubba Ray to protect her. Bubba Ray protected her. Bubba Ray did the right fucking thing. And that is a moment that we still remember to this day. So Rhino made sure to protect her. It's a crazy fucking spot. That's crazy shit. And somebody could have been seriously hurt outside the ring. But got to give a lot of props to Rhino for making sure that she got protected. My early predictions for the Yankees and Mets this season, I think the Mets are going to do a hell of a lot better this year than next. I have a feeling the Mets are going to do a trade for a big-time pitcher. If they can improve their pitching just a little bit more, I think the Mets have a legitimate shot to get into the playoffs. I'm not going to predict World Series stuff yet. It's way too early. Yankees, they apparently dodged a bullet with Gerrit Cole. They thought he might need Tommy John surgery, and that's apparently not the case. I think with them, it's the same thing. If they can get strong starting pitching, I think they'll obviously be in the playoffs. Their offense is too crazy. I'm looking forward to 2025 and the Mets get Juan Soto. I think if the Mets get Juan Soto and they could have a pretty good starting rotation in 2025, yeah, I think they're playing some serious ball there. All right, 3 more questions. Theme parks with Johnny. My milestone came in as a new membership, but it wasn't. I left a message for it. Was I able to see it on my end? It was when I was talking about Mercedes. No, but I can go back. She needs a manager, Mercedes. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, there's a new feature on YouTube. I can actually go back when it's shout outs, super shout outs, and memberships. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. Mercedes don't need a manager. First of all, who would manage her? Number 2, Mercedes doesn't listen. I'd rather see Mercedes with an entourage and be like kind of like the leader of an entourage than have a manager. She doesn't need a mic piece for her. I just want to see Mercedes I wish they had stronger, bigger baby faces. It's not to take anything away from Chris Statlander. It's not to take anything away from Britt Baker. It's not to take anything away from Willow or anybody else. But man, if they had some, strong draws in the babyface department, Mercedes is a heel in AEW. Oh man, would that be fucking money? If everybody felt like she was just using AEW for money and to get gold and to build her resume, almost kind of like what MJF was doing, the war in 2024. If Mercedes did that, it would work 10 times more. You know why? Because Mercedes was the enemy. She was in WWE. MJF was not. I'm telling you, Kevin and I were talking about this a little bit on Monday, and I really feel that way. Mercedes should be a fucking heel. She comes in there acting like her shit don't stink, that she's better than everybody else, and you have somebody that's a strong babyface get on a mic and put her in a place. She could be what Jericho was when he debuted in 99 for the WWF, and the babyface could have been The Rock. Obviously not on the level of The Rock, but Mercedes, if they had the right people, Mercedes could be a monster heel in AEW. This bitch don't care about AEW. She's just here for fucking money and for power and to get gold and leverage when she goes back to that's a storyline handed to them. But they got Britt Baker might be the only one that could come out there and say, this is my fucking company. This is my women's division. Problem is, after that, what do? Oh, yeah, heel Mercedes could come, but she should have came in that way. She should have came in kissing Boston's ass and then telling Boston to kiss her ass. That's what I would have done. Her as a heel, oh, man, the fucking net would be talking right now. All the AEW fans, please, Tony, have some woman there kick her ass. I want to see her get her ass kicked. I'm telling you, they missed an opportunity. Bigger porn star, contribution to the business, Jasmine St. Clair or Lizzie Borden. I didn't follow either one of their careers that closely. I know Jasmine St. Clair's career was a little more well-known because of one infamous movie with many people involved. Let's just leave it at that. Lizzie Borden, I didn't see much of. I will tell you, I met Lizzie Borden, obviously, outside of the adult industry because she was she was the valet for Shane Douglas, and she was Rob Black's wife when I worked for XPW behind the scenes. She was a very, very, very nice person. I have told the story 1 trillion times over the years. Her birthday happened the same weekend as one of the XPW shows in the ECW arena. And me and this guy Slash went to Carvel and bought a cake. And they did a little surprise birthday, happy birthday for her in that building. And I remember it was bitter cold. ECW arena, the heat was not on. And it was fucking cold in that building. It was the winter time. I don't remember what her birthday is. Somebody wants to look it up by all means, but it was the winter time. And they surprised her with a birthday cake. Man, I mean, even without the cake, she was just mad cool. You'd be surprised. As crazy as people perceive Rob Black to be, Lizzie Borden always seemed to come across as the opposite. Lizzie Borden was a pretty nice person. I really have nothing negative to say about her. Lizzie Borden was not a wrestling promoter. She was the wife of Rob Black, who was promoting XPW. She was not that hands-on involved. She was not a wrestling promoter. And Jasmine St. Clair at 3PW, I thought Jasmine St. Clair did a good job at 3PW. And, I'll tell you a little story. Maybe this might be a story that a lot of you don't know because I've only probably told it once before, other than the time it happened. I did a show for XPW. I don't know if it was February of 03. It was wintertime. And they were doing a back-to-back. They were doing a show on Friday night and a Saturday night. And what happened was they were anticipating a major snowstorm to come to Philly. So there was a little bit of buzz that the Saturday show might be canceled. I had a big bus trip that was supposed to pick up a whole bunch of people in the city, Queen Center Mall, in New York, and take them to the ECW arena on Saturday. I had about 200 people scheduled for my bus trip. So now I'm asking people in XPW Friday afternoon, look, is Saturday going to be canceled? Nah, it's probably not going to be canceled. No, probably is not good enough. If it's going to be canceled, I have to let all these people know. Understand, everyone, this is 2002. Social media was pretty much non-existent. I had my hotline. That's how you let people know what was going on. So picture this. I'm doing commentary. I'm sitting at the announcer's table doing timekeeping during Friday night's XPW. And we're at intermission. Intermission was around 11 o'clock at night because they decided to have a musical band play that night. I don't remember who the band was, but they were doing like an intermission concert. And meanwhile, I still don't know what's going on. And then by 11:30, somebody said to me that they're canceling Saturday. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm in Philly. How am I going to let everybody know? It's 11:30 Friday night. People are supposed to be picked up on the bus trip 9 o'clock the next morning. So I do the timekeeper for the second half of the show. They announced that Saturday was going to be canceled. And people started walking out. And I'll never forget Chris Kloss standing in the middle of the ring trying to get everybody to stay for the main event because they're recording it for home video. They don't want the building to be half full. And I remember Chris Kloss saying, free DVDs, stay, stay. And it felt desperate. And I thought it was so awful. So the show ends at like 12:30 in the morning. And I go on my hotline and I tell everyone, look, I hope everybody gets this message. If you have a friend that's supposed to go on a bus trip, if you know their phone number, please call them and tell them the show is canceled. A lot of people did not find out that the show was canceled, and they showed up at the bus trip. Well, 3PW, Jasmine St. Clair, was also doing a wrestling event that Saturday. They did not cancel their show. Why? Because the snowstorm was going to hit Philly on Sunday. And the reason why they canceled the Saturday show was because they wanted all the wrestlers who live on the West Coast to be able to book a flight on Saturday so they could get home. If they would have wrestled Saturday night, it would have been too late for them to get home before Sunday, and they would have been stranded in Philly. On the surface, you might say, okay, that makes sense. The Northeast guys, the Danny Dorings and everybody else, even Shane Douglas, who lived in Pittsburgh, they could just drive home Saturday night right after the show. But the West Coast guys, they wanted them to be able to get flights. So 9 o'clock the next morning, people show up at the bus trip site. No bus. Jasmine St. Clair knew that I was doing a bus trip that day, and she offered to take everybody to 3PW for free. And they showed up at the site and told everybody at the bus trip site what happened and said, if you want to go to 3PW for free, let's go. And I ended up refunding everybody. I ended up and that's what happened with the blowout with Stash. And actually, this all connects. This is how I got the Don Tony name. This is the God honest truth. When that show got canceled, I had to refund everybody's bus trip money. Every single person had to get $65 back. So I gave back about, 190 people, $65 a pop. It's a lot of money. I go to Rob Black, and Rob Black says, look, I don't have the funds right now. I'll give it to Slash, and Slash will give it to you. Slash never gave me the money. And I found out that Rob Black gave him the money. Slash put it in his pocket. And that's when I said, if I see that guy, I'm going to fucking put him in the hospital. I don't care if I ruin my life. I'm going to fucking go after him. And word got around of what he did. So infamous Jersey Old Pro Wrestling, a couple of months later, Bam Bam Bigelow. And if any of you think I'm lying, go to the Mass Maniac on Twitter, ask him if this is true. Let him hear this clip and he'll tell you it's true. Bam Bam Bigelow calls up Mass Maniac on a Saturday night while he's wrestling in I think it's Jersey Old Pro or it was for NWA Cyberspace. Bam Bam Bigelow says, you know that guy Slash that Anthony is looking for? He's here. Bam Bam was calling Mass Maniac, say, tell de Blasi he's here. So Mass Maniac calls me up and says, Bam Bam just called. He said Scott called because we called him Scott. He says, Scott called. Slash is at the show. I said, I'm going there right now. I guess somehow Bam Bam was somebody told Slash that I was showing up there and he fucking disappeared. So for a very long time, I was trying to get Slash. So about a year and a half later, I'm working for USA Pro Wrestling and I'm doing the tickets at the door. And this was one of the first times that I did the cannoli gimmick because I was still Tony Cannoli at the time, giving out cannolis and having the empty trays, and then empty trays turned into weapons. That's how I snuck weapons at ringside. I give out cannolis, and then I have an empty tray, and then I give the empty tray to the guy I was managing and uses as a weapon. That was my character. So I'm doing the tickets at the door, and now there's a year and a half later, and a lot of people that tune into my hotlines knew what happened. And they were all on my side because like, wow, that's fucked up. He gave out all that money. I took money from my credit card and paid everybody, even though I got screwed. And that was a cool thing by a lot of people's standards. So I had cannolis underneath where I was collecting the tickets. And somebody comes up to me and says, Slash is here. And I'm like, no. They're like, yeah, he's here. And I'm like, where? And like, he's over here. And he was sitting like the third row, with his girlfriend. And I didn't know what to do. So now I'm like, this guy owes me thousands of dollars. So my first reaction was I looked down and I see cannolis. I grabbed a bunch of cannolis. And I walked, this Mass Maniac will verify all of this. I walked from the front of the building to the third row, and I tapped him on the shoulder. And he turned around and he looked at me and he said, hey, Anthony, what's going on? I said, what's going on? And I fucking uppercut him in the nose with the cannolis. Cannolis went through his nose, out his mouth. That's how hard I hit him. He wore very expensive prescription glasses. He had a problem where he couldn't see daylight. That he always had to wear sunglasses. He had a vision problem. I took his sunglasses. I said, you want these glasses? You fucking meet me outside. I went outside and tons of people are following me outside because they think I'm going to fight him. We go outside and he's apologizing like, fuck you. And I threw his glasses on the floor and shattered them. And then I walked back in the building and everybody's patting me on the back. Good, you fucked him over. Fuck him. And he left. One guy that saw the whole thing didn't know the story. So this guy walks up to me at the front. This is how I got the Don Tony name. We'll end the show on this. Guy comes up to me, probably in his early 30s, with his wife. And he says to me, he goes, look, he says, you seem like a nice guy. Can I ask you an honest question? I said, sure. He says, was that all necessary? And I looked at him. I said, excuse me? He's like, was that necessary? I mean, you broke the guy's glasses. The guy didn't try to throw a punch and you hit him in the face. I'm like, listen, sir, with all due respect, this man owes me $10,000. He ripped me off of a lot of money and he ducked me. And this is the first time I got to see him. I said, I'm sorry, but, I'm pissed off. And he says to me, he goes, all right. He's like, but I just feel like that wasn't necessary. He's like, if you're upset at the guy, fine. But, what are you trying to be like a tough Italian guy? What do you think? You're a Don? And literally in front of all these people, this guy is like giving me a hard time. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I am a fucking Don. I'm Don fucking Tony. And the guy's like, look, I'm just saying. I'm like, yeah, I understand that. But, let me steal $10,000 from you and see how you feel about it. And I got angry. And then a whole bunch of people like, yeah, Don Tony, you tell him. And the name stuck. Ever since that night, I've had the Don Tony name. I went from Tony Cannoli to Don Tony. So that's when you see Don Tony name now, that's how I got it. That is a true story. A lot of people witnessed it. And, one good thing about telling these stories, people are alive to vouch for it. And you could contact Mass Maniac. What is this? We're an hour and 50 minutes in. Just tell him, hey, Maniac, check out the hour and 45-minute mark. Is he true what he's saying? He'll tell you word for word what I'm saying is true. Especially the Bam Bam Bigelow part, which was fucking hilarious. Because I was home, and my phone rings, and Maniac is on the line. He's like, Aunt, Scott just called. He's here. He's in Jersey. He's and I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, he's there. Go there. Kick his ass. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm going to go. And I started driving there, and then I think it was Maniac called me up and said, he left. I'm like, shit. And I turned around and drove back home. A lot of people had my back at the time. There's a lot more to this story, everybody. There is a lucha show that happened that this guy Slash ran, and I had people that said to me, and if you think I'm lying about this, ask lowlife Louis Ramos if any of you talk to Louis still. When this guy did this big lucha show at Club Amazora in Jamaica, Queens, he brought in all these Mexican stars. If you Google history, you'll see the show online. And I had so many people that called me up and said, Aunt, DT, Funker, whatever they called me at the time, I'm not going because I know what he did to you. He drew 70 people. The guy spent $25,000. This was like 2005 or 2006. He spent 25 grand between the building and the wrestlers. He drew 70. Louis was on the card. Louis will tell you, a whole bunch of people that were there were like, I hope DT shows up and kicks his ass. There's so much that we could unpack from this story. But that is a legit story. Seriously. I haven't seen him since. And people have asked me, like, if I saw him, would I shake his hand? After all these years, I probably would. I never got my money. You know why it angered me the most? I didn't tell you this part because I didn't want to bring it on the show, but I'll tell you. My uncle took his own life in 1999. I started my insurance career in 1998. I originally went partners with my uncle. My uncle, without getting into a whole long story, my uncle was in heavy debt. He owned a house, owned 2 cars, wife, 2 kids. Kids were 8 and 10 at the time, I would say. He was their hockey coach, basketball coach. Like, he was the perfect father. But he was in so much debt because he was trying to be like the perfect dad, giving his family everything, that he started taking money from insurance customers. And he would use that. We found this all out afterwards. He left a note. He would take money from the insurance customers that were paying him, and he would pay his bills with it. And then the day before their insurance would cancel, he would pay their insurance. So a lot of customers were getting late notices. They didn't know why. So he took his own life. Now, my cousins, my nephews, I guess, they're wrestling fans. They were on that bus trip. Slash charged them $65 a piece to be on that trip. When I told Slash that my nephews, they come on the bus trip, you don't charge them. I will pay for it. And he's like, no, I'll never charge him. I'll never charge him. I found out afterwards he took $65 from each one of them. Now, as far as they knew, my aunt knew they were paying. But me, I would always, when they would show up, I would say, no, I got it. But that time, he took their money. So when he ripped me off of all that money, not only did he rip me off, he took $65 from my two nephews, whose father just took his own life a couple of years before. That's why I wanted to beat the shit out of him more than anything else. The problem is, you got to understand this. I know this sounds like a movie, but what you got to realize too is this guy Slash was a snowflake before snowflakes was a thing. This is 2002, 2003, I should say. This is 21 years ago. The world in 2003 is a lot different than what it is now. That guy was a snowflake back then. If I would have done worse, he would have called the cops on me. I think because people have asked me, how come he didn't call the cops when I pie-faced him and, he was bleeding from the nose and he had cannoli cream coming out of his mouth. It was like Mick Foley when the teeth went through his nose. This was the opposite. The cannoli cream went through his nose, out through his mouth. I think the only reason why he didn't call the cops was because he stole $10,000 from me. And I would have told the cops what he did. And even though I still would have been in trouble, I could have pressed charges against him for the money. I never pressed charges because, especially in wrestling, like if you have a problem, like you don't go to law enforcement, like you have an issue with someone, you deal with it. I know that sounds stupid, but I didn't want to have this stigma that, he runs to the police for anything. I had to take it. And that's what happened. Oh, I don't want anybody apologizing. In the end, it worked out, man. 21 years later, I'm still here doing this shit. I ended up with a name, a character out of it. And the funny thing is, the Don Tony character is kind of like a little bit of reflection on, real life at times. But so that's how it all started, everybody. That's how it all started. You ended up getting a 2-hour show after all. I don't mind doing stories once in a while. I do get it. There's a few of you out there that go back decades with me. So for some people out there, when I tell a story, they'll roll their eyes and be like, oh, God, I got to hear this again. Understand that for 90% of the people out there that are tuning in right now, they were not tuning in 20 years ago or 15 years ago. So they are not aware of this story. So that's why sometimes when I tell the story, it's not to toot my own horn. It's not to put myself over, but, it's a memorable story that a lot of people don't know. Probably would get a kick out of knowing, hey, how did you get the DT name? And there you go. Story time. So I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your weekend. I will be back Monday night with Kev at 11:15 p.m. right after Raw. We'll be on Discord. And just once again, a reminder, a week from this Sunday, the 24th of March, 8 o'clock, right here on YouTube, Kev and I will be live for Q&A, and we'll go as long as necessary. If there's enough turnout, and especially if there's some fundage coming in, if we got to go 3 hours, 4 hours, we'll do it. Believe me. Kev and I over the years, Mish and I, when I was talking to Mish, we don't talk anymore, even though there's no hard feelings. But back in the day, Mish and I, one time, were thinking about doing an all-nighter. That if people did show up and we could generate some revenue to build the shows, we were going to do an all-nighter one time. It's like a challenge to see who could outdo the other. And, I was going to prepare myself to do an 8, 12-hour show if needed. Just my ass would hurt. But, I don't see Kevin and I doing anything like that. But, down the line, who knows? We get like the right day, right time. Maybe we could do a marathon. That's one thing that I've never done. I think the longest show we did was the night that Benoit, we found out what Benoit did to his family. I think we did 4.5 hours that night, maybe even a little more than that. I think that's the longest show I've ever done. Maybe a watch along and a show afterwards, but I don't consider that one show. I consider that two. But I always on my bucket list, podcast bucket list. I want to do a marathon show, 8 hours minimum. But we'll see. We'll see. I would do it. Obviously, there's got to be an incentive, but I would do it. Maybe it will happen. We'll see. But guys, gals, it's been real. I hope you have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you haven't done so already, you want to support the show without, having to dig into the pockets, because I know the way everything is these days with expenses. Just subscribe, spread the word, let everybody know that, I'm still here. Kevin and I are back doing shows on Mondays, and join us next Sunday if you're not doing nothing. It's going to be a blast, man. We're going to have a lot of fun that Sunday. So you all have a good one, everyone. Be well. I'll catch you all again soon.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the hosts. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.